Special guest this morning, Dave Sunday, our District Attorney of York County, our York City Police Commissioner, Osborn Robinson III, and also Dave Lash, our Northern Regional Police Chief. And we've got Dave in York with a question for them this morning. Dave, go ahead. It's your turn to make the call.
Good morning, Gary, and good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
It's a good show. My question is, with all of the news media covering everything, is this fueling the fire for in spawning protests everywhere?
Great question. Commissioner Robinson, we're going to come to you on that. Does the media help or hurt you in this? What's your thought about that?
I guess I don't look at it in terms of them hurting or helping. I think that they can hurt or inflame some situations. I think that they can help some situations. It depends on the moment. It depends on the reporter. But ultimately, they are a part of the fabric of our culture right now. And so we just have to learn to navigate and utilize them to our best ability in the same way they attempt to manage and utilize us to achieve their agendas in some cases.
Chief Lash, your thought on that?
I'll agree with the commissioner. I think at times some of this behavior may be egged on by the media, or knowing that they're going to be filmed, or maybe they want their 15 minutes in fame. But I also, agree that they're a vital part of this, and they're recording some history, and most of the time they're doing it in an impartial way, and neither inciting nor calming the situation, just giving the information out to the people. And
our District Attorney, Dave Sunday, you get to deal with this kind of stuff all the time, Dave, and obviously, whether you like it or not, you're in the news, and the media is a very big part of your life, right?
They are, and a couple points I want to make. The first point is, there are times where the media may write a story that we sit back here, look at each other and say, that was a great story. They put a lot of work into that. There's other times where they write a story that we may vehemently disagree with. And the takeaway, however, is for a free and safe society, we must have a robust presence of media in some form or fashion. It has to exist. I want to turn the question a little bit and talk about the concept of one of the problems I see with the media, especially during situations like this. It's really not the media's fault. What I see it has become so much easier for us as people to it's almost like I hate to use the word tribalism, but in a sense, to do nothing but sit in like a vacuum with other people that have the exact same ideas and thoughts. And the way that the media is right now, especially with online media, there are tremendously complex algorithms that basically, and people don't even know it's happening, that put you to people that have the same thoughts. And and I think that's an absolute fact. That's part of the business model. And so what, as a society, we need to do is we need to take a step back. We need to take a step back and basically create our own narratives. Create the view through which we look at the world should not be dictated to us by large media corporations. I challenge people to turn off Facebook, to turn off Instagram, to just turn it off, and to go for a walk. Read the newspaper, because we have to somehow break the trend of media story and then societal reaction. Media story, societal reaction. I've personally seen national media stories in which the facts in those stories, and I knew them personally for a few different issues, were woefully incorrect.
Right.
And what that does is it creates a sense of we're constantly reacting to what people are telling us instead of us going out there, making our own future, taking over for ourselves, and making our community the way we want it. And so that was sort of a little bit of a lengthy answer, but I think that we control our community, we control our own narrative, and we have to take that leadership and lead ourselves away from some of these media stories that are without question geared towards getting people to look so that they can achieve more advertising revenue at our expense.
Commissioner Robinson, being the commissioner of the police of the city, you talked earlier about institutional racism, and a lot of people If you read these stories, you hear people on the receiving side, you hear people on the other side. I guess I want to ask you the question, as a police chief, I mean, you have to be representing your police, and at the same time, you have to serve the community. And to protect and serve has always been kind of the thing we've thought about with police. What would you want people to know about policing right now that maybe they don't understand with regard to having to balance those kinds of things? What are some of the things that you'd like them to know that they're sitting back saying, geez, I didn't really understand that about policing before?
Well, institutional racism is what it is. And I'm going to go back to when you were talking about the hiring and weeding out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Dave spoke of having an extremely strong Constitution here in America. But it doesn't matter how strong the Constitution is. It doesn't matter how strong hiring practices are. It doesn't matter how strong policies are if they are interpreted and applied with bias. And so sometimes that comes down to an individual. And in hiring people, it's like going out on a date for the first date. You know, I show you the best me and you show me the best you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we put on our best clothes. We put on our best fragrances, our best shoes. The guys, they may put a sponge or something inside of their shoe to make them a couple inches taller. Our ladies may put on their makeup, and we basically come to the date as imposters. And isn't it until you really get to know the person that you begin to see who they really are. And similarly, with these hiring practices, there's nothing that's going to eliminate that part of the process. But it goes back to leadership in terms of having the intestinal fortitude that when that behavior rears itself, that we address it at the point of contact when it first occurs, right? And not move the person to another place in the organization, or just write them a counseling statement for either the specific incident, making light of it, or make it pretend that it's something other than what it really is. And the problem with racism and discriminatory practices is that the oppression of people really is about power. And as I was just explaining to Dave while we were on a commercial, you know, at the end of the day, if we aren't represented at the table, people of color aren't represented at the table where the decisions are being made, it becomes difficult to systematically and comprehensively, not just in policing, but across industries, to change anything. Because the power is having the authority and the backing to make change. So it isn't even so much that people of color have an advance, become more educated, but when you look around the boardrooms of the powerful companies, when you look around the boardrooms and the conference rooms of many industries across America, we're still very, very poorly represented.
Deb in Hanover with a question here. Deb, go ahead. Your turn to make the call.
Yeah, I've been listening to you guys talk about this, for a long time, and I don't understand why, when you get stopped by the police, why you don't stop and put your hands up and do what they say. I never heard of deciding to run, pull a gun, or anything else. If you get stopped for a stop sign, you don't get out of the car and run or try to run over the policeman. I don't understand why they don't make a law that says that, and then whatever it is after that, it is.
Well, I'm going to let the police chiefs answer this one for you, Deb. Thank you for your question. Dave, I'll let you go with that first.
Deb, thanks for the question. You know, some of these situations unfold pretty rapidly, and the issues you've brought up, have been talked about in the national media for quite some time. But, there is no magic wand that any of us can wave. There's no magic answer. And, I agree that when you're stopped by the police, the best thing for you to do is to follow the direction of the police officer. And as I heard last week during some of this conversation was, survive the encounter. And then if you would like to file a complaint or believe you were treated unfairly, then you take that up with the chief of police or the town council or wherever that police department may be. So we would have fewer issues if we would have that kind of mindset, both the police officers and the people being stopped, is to survive the encounter, follow direction, and take whatever actions necessary after the traffic stop or encounter has happened to correct any issues that you may have encountered.
Commissioner Robinson, I want to get your reaction to that as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, who is she referring to when she says she doesn't understand why they don't just not run, and she's never heard of people running when that happens. Who is she referring to?
Well, I think that was a general statement. I don't know if, just talking about, when people are arrested, I think most of us, I've been stopped for a couple traffic violations. I'm kind of one of those, I'm listening, I'm following directions, I'm taking care of it and getting out of there with as little as possible. So I think she's probably looking at it that way. But I can't, she's off the line now, so I can't really read into what she's saying. But go ahead.
Gotcha. I mean, I've been a cop for 27 years. Mm-hmm. And in as much as I've had tons of people who I've placed under arrest who have cooperated, I have had some who have not cooperated.
Right.
And in most cases in my career, when people haven't cooperated, what they have been trying to do is escape the arrest,
right,
and not trying to harm the officer. And clearly, when you look at the fact that how much of our, and when I say our, I'm talking about the citizens who watch TV, a lot of what we think about cops and a lot about what we think about many things in America is subject to what we see and hear in music, what we see on television, what we see in movies. And bad guys have been running away from cops forever.
Right.
That's what they do. They try to escape prosecution and accountability for what it is that they've done, and that will continue to happen.
And we see that in our local area even all the time. I mean, we see chases and things like that. So people are going to react in a different way. And again, people who have committed a crime prior, who are being chased, are going to tend to probably run more than comply with the law at that particular point. Let's get John in East Berlin in for a question. John, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Real quickly, I just have to say that with all the protests and everything that's happening in the country and what's happened since the beginning of time, there's a thing called sin, corruption, and immorality. Racism is one of those many products of, the way we live and the way, because of our sin nature. I will have to say one thing about the media. I think the media is a lot more culpable than what I've heard spoken on this show this morning. I can give you concrete examples. I don't have time to do it now, but there's a lot of bad stuff. There's a thing called the AP Style Book. Comes out every year by the media. I use that as a reference. You ought to look that up and see what the media does. I also am familiar with a person that used to work back in the Clinton years as a lower-level journalist in the White House, had degrees in journalism and communications, quit the craft because of what she was ordered to do by her superiors. Yeah. And let me tell you, it boils down to one big thing. There's a lot of lying that goes on with the media, and they're very crafty at it.
John, we're going to go with that, and thank you. I want each of you to have a final thought here on this situation that's unfolding here in the United States right now. And I'm going to start out with Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Robinson, final thoughts here this morning on anything related to this whole George Floyd incident and how it relates to York County or York City and policing from your vantage point.
I'll just end with this, Gary. As we move today and as we move through the week, not just here in New York but across the country, let us not forget why we are protesting, and let us stand together and remember the why that we're here. We should be practicing our constitutional right to peacefully protest, to be heard, to voice our opinions. But at the end of the day, we have to move beyond that and come up with some solutions that move towards solving the problem.
Amen. Dave Lash, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think once the protesting is done, and where do we go from here? I think that's the next question. How do we take this and turn this into a productive dialogue and partnerships to fix the problems that have been plaguing us? And I guess that's the million-dollar question. And again, we don't have a magic wand, but I think all we need to do is sit down, listen to each other, and work towards those goals.
And Dave Sunday, our district attorney, more dialogue needed on this. Maybe we could do a little bit more of this next week with our two chiefs.
Yeah, I think that we must, and when I say we, I mean the collective we of society. Okay, we as prosecutors, me as the DA, police, people in the community, we all have to do a better job of learning from this, from understanding each other. And it's important to do that because the alternative is a defunct society.
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to conversations we've had about, and I always bring up the Navy analogies, but I remember the simplicity of being on a Navy ship where we were all in uniform, we had ranks, we treated each other with respect and dignity every single day, and we were all rowing in the same direction. If you can get that done on a Navy ship, I don't know, how or why we can't get that done in a community. I think we need to learn some lessons from that, and everybody needs to grow from this situation and become better in everything we do.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Truly is an honor, and we appreciate what you're trying to do out there to serve, and continue good luck in going forward, and be safe, okay?
Thank you very much, Gary. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you to all three of you this morning. Osborn Robinson, Dave Lash, Dave Sunday with us here on WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton. WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton. WSBA Morning News with Gary